Hello everyone, my name's Jason Carter, and my real-life situation deals with counselor to the president Kellyanne Conway and her alternative facts snafu she presented to the world during President Trump's first day in office. In case you would like a reminder, here's a recap.
You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts.
This situation came about after White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer addressed the White House press corps following President Trump's inauguration and shared information that has been proven false. In particular, this quote from Spicer's first briefing has truly been seen as both false and counterproductive.
Inaccurate numbers involving crowd size were also tweeted. No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. By the way, this applies to any attempts to try to count the number of protesters today in the same fashion. We do know a few things, so let's go through the facts. We know that from the platform where the president was sworn in to 4th Street holds about 250,000 people. From 4th Street to the media tent is about another 220,000. And from the media tent to the Washington Monument, another 250,000 people. All of this space was full when the president took the oath of office. We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
Both Spicer and Conway are strategic communicators, and both should have to make appearances following some kind of code. Now, following some of the lessons that we've learned throughout the course of the semester, it appears that they did. I would argue from my own code of communication ethics that both are closer to liars and manipulators than ethical communicators. But let's see what history's greatest ethical minds think. I've made 3 question prompts for you throughout the presentation. Please pick 2 of them to answer. Our first stop on this tour of ethics is deontology, which is an approach that focuses on the rightness or wrongness of actions themselves, as opposed to the rightness or wrongness of the consequences of those actions. Immanuel Kant's viewpoint on this was on duty. If a person could ascertain his or her duty in a given situation, Kant argues that person was required to follow the duty regardless of any consequences. By this standards, I would say Conway did exactly what her duty entails, regardless of the outcomes. She's been hired to talk good about the president, no matter how false everyone else may think that information is. Following this train of thought, Conway's appearance before the American people is entirely ethical. So, my first question to you. Due to her position in the White House, Conway has the ear of the American people every time that she speaks. Does that mean she should be held to a higher ethical standard than everyone else? If so, how do we hold someone in her position more accountable? Next up, utilitarianism. This theory says, in plain terms, as long as the outcome makes the masses happy, that's really all that matters. From Conway's point of view, and therefore the White House's point of view, her statements probably made a ton of people happy, especially those who actually believe that mainstream media is an enemy of the state. One would have to assume her statements also made Donald Trump happy because it would further solidify his viewpoint on everything. From that point of view, she would have made an ethical statement. However, for the overall masses, her statement was not received very well. If you use just the overall election numbers from last November, more than 65 million people voted for Clinton, while just under 63 million voted for Trump. In our current political landscape, in which we apparently aren't allowed to accept even a fraction of someone else's beliefs, that would lead me to believe that every word that comes out of the Oval Office is a complete and utter falsehood, meaning Conway in fact violated the terms of utilitarianism. So my second question to you. During that lesson, we also learned about lower and higher pleasures and how someone should strive to have as many high pleasures as possible. First off, would you consider Conway's conversation a higher or lower pleasure, and why? Second, if you consider it a higher pleasure, does that mean she was conducting ethically positive communication? The final ethical approach we're going to look at is ethics of care. This one is a little split for me. From the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, care ethics seeks to maintain relationships by contextualizing and promoting the well-being of caregivers and care receivers in a network of social relations. I would classify Conway as a caregiver in this situation, and she doesn't do a very good job of maintaining the relationship with the care receivers, which in this case is the American public. The president's overall approval rating is the worst out of the last 10 presidents by this time in their first year in office. Her job is to be a voice to the American people about what is happening in the Oval Office, and she obviously isn't doing a very good job. So, my final question for you is this. How can Conway possibly improve her image with the care receivers, or the American public, in order to improve the president's, and in her turn, dismal approval rating? So in conclusion, like every topic that we've covered this semester, you can find ethical theories that both support and reject Kellyanne Conway's comments as either ethical or not. I think I've probably made my personal opinion pretty clear, but to wrap it up, in my view, there is no way that she was communicating ethically when making her comments about alternative facts. Thank you for watching the presentation, and I look forward to continuing the conversation throughout the week.